Okay.
Yes,
Good question.
Yes, yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I understood that there was a emergency HARB meeting today.
There was on Melange. They came to our meeting last week, and need my glasses. Their application, they had showed they came into planning in June, and they wanted to do etchings on the existing windows on the building of a sycamore tree. There's no verbiage on it, but they are considered signage. And our understanding was they were going to do them on the existing windows, which are historically compliant with the historic district. So they came into the meeting Tuesday night. Long story short, we found out after the meeting that they had already replaced the existing windows with single pane that are not approved for the historic district. We had the HARB meeting this morning. They pretty much came in and knowing that the windows were already installed.
Right.
So we try to help at planning. We try to help applicants to be compliant. We try to encourage the businesses. We want to help the businesses be successful in the township. But so the windows are not, the single pane windows are not permitted in the historic district. They are already installed. They also demolished, I believe, a bar on the back deck without a permit. Now the windows do not require a building permit.
Correct.
But they have to be compliant with the historic district.
Okay. So HARB is not in agreement with what they have done?
No.
Okay.
I'm going to let Craig come up and talk.
Sure.
Craig's our vice chair. He's also a member of the HARB and on the Joint Historic Commission.
Okay.
Hi. To just give a little bit more information about what I understand is going on here. The applicant came to HARB to represent. It had some signage on the building, which was a standard sign of a wood sign in front, and then they actually asked for the idea of putting an etched piece of glass in the window as a sycamore tree. At the time, Bill Noller, our president, had said that's a zoning issue, and we have to determine if the signage would be approved by the zoning board. Our understanding as in HARB at the time was that it was only going to be utilizing the upper sash of a double hung window in a historic building. These were double hung windows straight across. We then realized, again, I sit on the planning commission as the vice chair, we realized that the planning commission, just at that point, that they were not only asking for 4 additional signs, they were asking for 6 additional signs, and that the actual signage was actually replacing the double hung window with a single pane picture window, which HARB did not get a chance to review, didn't even understand the context of it. So we sat here with the attorney and another representative of the applicant. They were not the same people who came to HARB. And we learned it at that point that it was something different. We still, at Planning Commission, we tabled the idea of this because we didn't get enough information from HARB, kind of sending them back to HARB to understand what was really going on. It was after that meeting, which was last Tuesday evening, I believe, that we learned that they've already removed the historic windows. They've taken out the double hungs, and they've now replaced them with this picture window with the etched glass. So before you guys tonight, as a HARB representative, I'd like to say that our historic district is really important to Newtown. And historic nature is what makes the context of Newtown. The building, the fenestration, the doors, the windows, the size, the roofs, how they're made. It's really, really important for us as a board, you guys as a board, to enforce that. What I did learn, because when I heard about it right away, I went to our township. I spoke to our building inspector. Mr. Mack was involved a little bit as I discussed with him what was going on, and our zoning officer about stopping work at this place. Stop it, right? Because something was done without a permit. What I learned really quickly was that in our historical district, there's no regulation, no permit needed to replace a window. Now, in historic districts in Philadelphia, Princeton, New York, I can go through the list. It's a historic district. It's treated a little bit differently. Why? Because it's historic. And we want to maintain a little bit of understanding about what is going to happen there. The fenestration of a window, right, in a historic window, there's a reason why window glass is a certain size, how it changed through time, how it was built and how it was made. The representation of historic windows in historic buildings in a historic district is really important. It's actually governed by Standard 911 of the Department of Interior's Federal Regulation of Historic Places. And I understand that our township has not actually adopted that or actually uses it to their power to control the process. I'm not saying that everything is equal. I'm saying there's a process. And in this case, we've learned that the process wasn't even really followed, and then therefore there's no enforcement of it. Our building inspector, Stanley, went right out there. Really amazing. He went out there, checked out what was going on. He informed me that you don't need a building permit to replace a window in a commercial building. Now that's a hiccup in our township. And it's really, really important, even if tonight you guys can act and just adopt the idea that in our historic district, as it is defined today, and I think we have a definition of our historic district, that a building permit needs to be issued for any removal, replacement, change of a window, a door, a roof, a siding, so on. Once that permit is required to be issued, then there's a process. HARB, Joint Historical Commission, any of these other things, and of course before you guys to actually give the final okay. But if we really want to preserve Newtown as a historic district and a historic place to be, which we know we really love and has great history, the architecture is really, really important. It's really important. And we want to do our best to stand up for that. Right now, I don't know how the board's going to act. I know there's a question about zoning for signage, but there's also a question about historical preservation. And I'm not 100% sure how the board's going to act. I would ask this board specifically to act quickly. Let the owner know. He's not an owner that is not unfamiliar with this area. He's an owner who's been here for years and years and years. His name is on the application. Act quickly, act strongly, and be responsible for our historic district. Help us, because we're only volunteers to you guys. We're only bringing this information. We spend our time to hopefully bring to you what we know so you guys can act. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Solicitor, there's nothing we can do tonight because this is not on the agenda, is that correct?
That's correct. The matter, there's two separate, completely different matters here that are being raised.
But in regards to a cease and desist.
Yes, that's already underway.
Okay, for the destruction of the bar outside? Because that's something
I
else.
assume so. I don't know the details of the code enforcement activity that has occurred. However, I do know that a notice of violation, at least one notice of violation, has already been issued. The enforcement of the violation of the historic district ordinance and HARB regulations is already underway. That's not an issue before this board. That plays out as a function of enforcing the ordinances, which is either the zoning officer, the code enforcement officer, or the police in appropriate situations.
But have they been issued a cease and desist order?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, I think in regards to the destruction of the bar outside without permission,
That's a violation of the HARB
Okay.
regulations in the historic district, and they're in violation of that.
and also are there fines that can be?
Absolutely.
Well, I think we should proceed with this.
It's already being done.
Okay, excellent.
I would also say that we should, have an ordinance that lays out exactly what is in terms that everybody will understand, that makes it clear exactly what you're saying.
Well-
And we should, who would work on that? I guess you and the planning commission would work on that?
Just as a suggestion, I think the standards of interiors already has that for historic districts. The federal government has done this homework for us. I asked this board to write as quickly as you can, if your next meeting, if you need it on an agenda, an ordinance that says in a historic district, the boundaries of that have been defined. They might expand, they might go less. In a historic district, or any building that's of a historic nature and is governed by a historic place, actually needs a permit. I don't care what the interior use is, commercial, residential, whatever we might come up with in the future, has to get a permit. Once you say it needs a permit, then therefore it has to go through the permitting process, which means it will be forced to go to HARB. We could talk about it. It'll force to go to everyone through there. It needs to be required that it gets a permit. I don't know how it was missed before in such a historic district, but here we are.
Again, we're talking about permitting on one hand, and we're talking about zoning on the other. Okay?
Correct. I'm
Okay.
only talking about the historic nature of permitting.
Let me finish. Just because you don't need a permit to change a window in the historic district, I was under the impression that you do need
Correct.
HARB approval.
So
Is that true?
So my understanding is you do need harbor.
Okay, so you've got control right there over window replacement. They don't need a permit. That's a separate thing. If they have to comply with the HARB provisions in the historic district ordinance of this township, then they must come to HARB and get a certificate of appropriateness from this board to replace a window. In this case, they did not do that. Therefore, that's yet another violation of our ordinances. But it has nothing to do with requiring a permit for a window or not. It's whether they followed the HARB requirements, and in this case, it seems they did not.
If I may, at last month's meeting, we approved a certificate of appropriateness.
That's correct.
And so, how do we get around that? Because they got it for four.
Because we approved one thing and they did another.
Yes, okay.
So they were falsely represented, and that's the
Yes,
truth.
I understand.
And counsel, right, you're the attorney for our township here. Let me be clear. Let me understand. Let me explain to you what I know a little bit too. By creating a permit gives the power to our code official, who we pay as an outside source, this township pays him, to go out and say, wait a minute, you didn't do this. The certificate of appropriateness, whether it comes through this board or they grant it or not, versus the right to get a permit to do work, are two different things.
Correct.
That's why I think that this board and Newtown Township should make sure that you need a permit. Let me give you examples. In Princeton, right, historic area, if you want to replace a window, doesn't matter how old your house is or what it is, commercial or residential in a district, you go before a board. And the reason they ask for the permit is because they give them the legal power, and you're a counselor, so you understand the legal argument, a legal power to send somebody out and shut someone down, and then fine them. Because right now, Stan, our building inspector, does not have that legal power.
Sure he does.
No,
He has the
doesn't,
legal
sir.
power to go out and shut them down and issue a cease and desist order because they didn't get a HARB certificate of appropriateness for the work that they're doing. Forget about the permit.
Sir, you need to make sure that this township knows that, because I met with our officials this morning in a meeting. They don't feel they have that power. We understand that from the zoning, Anna.
Well,
we understand it up and down. So
It's already
not
happened.
clear.
It's already happened in
not
this
clear.
case. The code official has gone out and issued a notice of violation.
Right, the work is still performing.
Well, I understand that too, but they're doing it all at their own risk. And when we take these guys to court on their violation, they're doing all this at their own risk. If the judge rules that they did this erroneously, guess what? They're going to have to take those windows out and put back in the double hung windows.
What I'm saying right now is we might be able to avoid the cost in the future of going to court.
They didn't get a permit for
There are always gonna be
anything.
people-
So even if we had a permit requirement, they were ignoring it anyway.
Understood.
Okay, we understand what you're
Okay.
saying. We will work on exactly what you're saying and see what we can come up with. I think that starts with planning and HARB to give us an outline of exactly what you think. And then we will all look at it, including the solicitor, and try to get something that does exactly what you think should be done, which I personally think is right. But tonight, we're going to address it under the solicitor's report in some way that will help a little bit right now. But yes, you're right. We
Madam
need
Chair, I
something
appreciate that
stronger.
very much. I appreciate that very much. And Mr. Solicitor, I appreciate you very much.
Likewise, Mr. Deutsch, thank you.
Thank you.